Shalom, Hebrews. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. Alright, Hebrews, we know it's a whole lot going on in the Promised Land. I'm talking about a whole lot going on in the Promised Land. Do this concern us? I think possibly so, if the Ashkenazi community are going ahead and listen to me, because we got to come home. You know, we are the Israelites that broke covenant during the Babylonian wars when we went into Egypt to do the Egyptian religion in the book of Jeremiah. That's what that's about, you know, and how we never come back home. And if you read Deuteronomy 28 or Leviticus, I think 23 or something like that, you'll see how the Israelites were promised a severe punishment in captivity and took it to a strange land. You know, so that happened to us. We are the Israelites. Ain't no question about that. We got Ashkenazi and the Sephardi's history documented thoroughly. You know, the Sephardi's gonna be somewhat like Amorites, man. They been in our heritage a long time. They came in our heritage during Joshua time when they tricked us and told us that they was from a far away, and they was the Gabonites, and they lived close to us, and we didn't destroy them, and we didn't consult Almighty Yah, and Joshua made them keepers of whatever temple we have to cut water and bring wood and so forth, to where when we built the temple eventually, that they had been in our heritage for a while, and then when we got chased out by their kindreds during the Babylonian wars, and they didn't go into Africa with us, and how they stayed on the land and consumed the whole Israelite heritage. And Ashkenazi gonna come in our heritage under the name Scythian. The Creator sent for them. He told the prophet Jeremiah to call the tribes from the north, and then they came in with the Babylonians, held control of the Babylonian army after they defeated the Assyrians in 612 BCE, and then they came at us. You know, the book of Ezekiel gonna be the first wave when they first came. And you know, if you look at how the Israelites was in the priesthood and so forth, that we didn't do it right. We didn't keep the Sabbaths, we didn't keep none of that. And then the second wave, when we was finally driven off, is gonna be the book of Jeremiah. The book of Jeremiah. Almighty Yah always gave us a chance, and we just didn't heed his warning. We was stiff-necked, and we was chased into Africa because we said we wanted to do the Egyptian religion. Well, we got kicked off the land for that, and we went into bondage, and we've been serving a severe long captivity, a long bondage, a terrible bondage. And you know, we Israelites trying to come back home, and I walked the land with this document, a proposal, trying to get them to understand where we have to settle. You know, the book of Obadiah tells you about our settlement, our final resting place. You know, and then that's what I want to mention, the book of Obadiah too. Also, I think it was 853 BCE. It was a prophecy. It started out with a prophecy, so it didn't come to pass when he was, you know, giving his message, but it come past during the Babylonian wars when Edom came into our heritage and settled our land. And the Edomites are there now. You know, a lot of Israelites call the Japhetic tribes Edomites, but they're not. The Japhetic tribes is going to be Ashkenazi, and Ashkenazi was prophesied to dwell in Shem's house. If you go to Genesis 9:27, you'll see our father, Prophet Noah, saying that Japhet shall dwell in the tents of Shem. It came to pass, and during the Babylonian wars, when we was chased out the promised land by them, and then they been in our heritage ever since. And Ashkenazi and Sephardi been having proxy wars over the Israelite title. That's why it's two rabbis. You know, you got an Ashkenazi rabbi and you got a Sephardi rabbi. Well, it's time for us Israelites to come home. The promised land is in turmoil, and there's no prophecy about Ashkenazi defeating the Edomites, because that's a job that we Israelites have to do. Even though Ashkenazi been having title, claim to the Israelite title for a long time, and they done forgot, you know, their origin, just like the Sephardi's, man, they done forgot their origin. 2,800 years, almost 3,000 years when we only got like 857 years under the covenant compared to they almost 3,000 years, 2,800 years. You know, they've been in our heritage a long time under the Israelite title, and they have a lot of history developed, especially the Sephardic community. That'll be everything that is outside the Tanakh. Every book outside the Tanakh, the Sephardim is going to be responsible for it. And you Israelites are confused about real Israelite history and how y'all just think our history went all the way down to what they call New Testament time. 500 years after the book of Malachi closed, 430 BCE, and then 500 years later, the settlers, the peoples who occupied our land, created a whole new way of worship, and they created demigod worship. Well, there's a lot of history that I explain on the Israelite Brotherhood site on YouTube. You know, a lot of you Israelites, you know, you've been, you know, having mixed history and not just pure Israelite history with its research and how y'all combine Ashkenazi and Sephardi history together. Well, that's over with. We can show plainly what happened to us without no discrepancies in the history, even chronicalized on the Israelite Brotherhood site. Now, what I want to talk about is what's going on in the Promised Land. You know, I was in the Promised Land for a good little while, and I walked the land, and I went to all the government agencies, giving them this proposal on how we could settle the Israelite issue and land issue. And they didn't hear me. They didn't want to hear me. It was places I couldn't record going in because it was like sensitive locations. I walked around the military base, man, probably about 7 times trying to get in it. I went to the Institute of Interior, trying to get in, the Institute of Settlements. Man, I went to all the agencies. I went to the embassies, giving them documents, trying to get them to settle the Israelite issue. And I went everywhere. And you know, I had to leave. I left in time, in a nick of time, because, you know, war broke out immediately after I left, and Ashkenazi is being devastated right now. You know, they're in the war. And I believe this war is supposed to bring us home. If they listen, we can work together. We can work together, and we can bring the land issue to an end and have peace throughout, you know, humanity. But, you know, they've been having the Israelite title for a long time, and they want to be seen as the only chosen people. And, you know, you got Israelites from all walks of life now. And what I'm trying to do is get them to understand that we can work together and we can settle in our heritage like Tanakh say, and we can bring this war to an end. And that if they don't bring it to an end, they're going to be constantly into battles, because they can't defeat the Edomites. There's no way possible for Ashkenazi to defeat the Edomites. He can only prolong his destruction. That's like how I explain BRICS. The BRICS nations, man, they are spreading, and they trying to bring in a whole new economy that's not based upon the American dollar. You know, the American dollar has kind of been created by Ashkenazi. The whole West is controlled by Ashkenazi, and he got control of the finances. That's why, you know, they're able to donate, the West nations are able to donate and keep Ashkenazi afloat in the Promised Land. It's because he developed their economy and so forth. But what I want to explain is, man, that war is not going to end, and that we have to come home and we have to settle in our heritage that Prophet Obadiah say we will settle in. You know, there's no way to get around that, and there's no way to get around prophecies, even though they've been trying, because they've been trying to act like they the Israelites, and then they try to do some of the things that prophecies say, even though a lot of those prophecies has passed, like from the Nile to the Euphrates. That happened during Solomon time. You know, they was bringing things, gifts, and everything. You know, he had control from the Nile to the Euphrates. You know, King Solomon did. So a lot of prophecies they didn't pass that they trying to recreate and do that is not going to happen, because, you know, it didn't pass already. But we Israelites have to come home. We have to come home. Mean, there's a lot going on in the Promised Land. I was there. They was partying. They was having a good time. And man, they was living good on the Promised Land. But, you know, it all must come to an end, because, you know, The real Israelites have to come home, and it's prophecies lingering in the air. It's prophecies floating around that has to be fulfilled. And one of the fulfillments is that the Israelites will come home and that they will build a temple in the mountainous regions overlooking Jerusalem, and that all nations will come to it. And then if they don't come to it, that droughts and plagues and so forth, man, to get them. And that has to come past, and that Ashkenazi cannot fulfill these prophecies that relate to the real Israelites, even though they've been having the Israelite title for a long time. You know, we have to come home. And that's why I give them this proposal, you know, on how to settle the Israelite issue, and then it'll settle it where it'll be equal to both of us. You know, the only people that won't benefit from the settlement is the Edomites. And the Edomites are the people that is not Ashkenazi, that's in the promised land. You know, Jordan got control of East Jordan, of East Jerusalem, and it's a proven fact that they come off of Edomite heritage. You know, that's why they don't want us to come home. There's a lot of people don't want us to come home because they don't want to settle this Israelite issue, and then they know that their religions that they believe in, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, will be at stake if we real Israelites come home and the truth come out about Tanakh history, about how we broke the covenant and went into Africa and was enslaved. You know, Prophet Moses' words still ring supreme today, and that how it would shed a cloud over those religions, and those religions have been profitable, and they've been fighting by them by proxy. You know, the two groups, Ashkenazi and Sephardi, have been fighting over the Israelite issue through the religions. That's like I explained in some videos how Christianity was created in Scythopolis. Scythopolis was head of the Discopolis cities. It was created before the Council of Nicaea. You know, it was created before the Council of Nicaea, and how the Catholic Church, the Holy Seas was in Scythopolis, and then that's where it kind of like get it started. You know, you Israelites don't know real history because you've been mixing Ashkenazi and Sephardi history up along with ours, and then left you confused and so forth. So that's why it's important to look at the Israelite Brotherhood site to get clarity. All right, we Israelites got to come home, and it's up to Ashkenazi to bring us home. That's like some of the Israelites snuck in the land, and didn't fulfill prophecy of being brought back home and then settling on equal terms with the Ashkenazi community, and how that they stuck in Dimona in the desert, and it's not looking too good for them. You know, they not fulfilling prophecy, and plus they believe in demigods, Yawashi, God's sons, and all that old type of stuff that the settlers created after we broke the covenant and was driven out the land. You know, it's a lot of history, Israelites. It's a lot of history, but you have to listen to the Israelite Brotherhood to get clarity. I got over 30 years into this and research non-stop every day doing research, man, about this Israelite heritage, and it's not what's portrayed in the in history books and what the camps none consume. Like I say, that's mixed history, that they mixing Sephardi, Ashkenazi, and our history together. You know, that's like that 10 lost tribes. A lot of Israelites believe that it was 10 lost tribes, but if you look at 2 Chronicles 30 under King Hezekiah in 715 BCE, that you'll see that the Israelites were still home. And then if you look at 2 Chronicles 34, King Josiah's great-grandson, King Hezekiah's great-grandson, King Josiah, you'll see that he cleaned up the land and all the Israelites were home. And then all the Israelites will be driven into Africa in the book of Jeremiah because we couldn't leave the Egyptian religion alone. We couldn't leave it alone. So, you know, we was eventually defeated and driven off the land. Like the Creator said, that if we went into the land worshiping other gods, what would happen to us? Well, it was fulfilled during the transatlantic slave trade. Now, what I asked you Israelites to do, man, is kind of join me and support the Israelite Brotherhood some kind of way, because I got the best history and I can best get results. You can get good results with correct history. That's like I'm the only one that done walked the promised land trying to get a settlement with a document showing, who we are. And I'm the only one with the Israelite Brotherhood that done went to the promised land trying to get them to release us based on prophecy and how that they have to help us come home and end this captivity. Well, the war that is going on today might just do that. It might end our captivity because I can't see them defeating the Edomites, even though they might make peace treaties and try to put it off, but it's still gonna be there because of the things that Ashkenazi has done in the promised land to them Edomites since we've been away. It's been a lot of fighting, so they ain't finna just give up. You know what I'm saying? It's a tug of war over the Israelite heritage, but we here to cut the cords and make it equal for all, and that we have to come home to serve Yah. So I've been appealing to the Ashkenazi community, trying to get them to release us. Now I pray that they hear and understand, this video in the history that I show for the Israelite Brotherhood, and then we can bring a peace to humanity. Well, this is the Israelite Brotherhood. I'm Israel ben Israel, and I pray that you Israelites understand some of what I'm saying, because it's important that we be on one page, because if they allow the Israelite Brotherhood to do anything without settlement, that you're going to have to know real correct history. Because if you don't know real correct history and you got mixed history, the Sephardi and Ashkenazi history, trying to call it Israelite history, then you're not going to be able to come back to the promised land. It wouldn't make no sense for you to come back with distorted history to cause confusion, and that how we're going to be on one page when we go home. Well, we got to be on one page. Coming home and getting ready to come in, we got to have one solid history, and the Israelite Brotherhood show it. And if you in doubt, compare your history to the Israelite Brotherhood history on YouTube. Shalom, Israelites. I pray that y'all listen to me and that we able to all be together to praise Yah one day. Shalom.